All right, thanks for coming back to another video. Today, I'm going to quickly, hopefully somewhat quickly, show how I attach handles to a knife. This is my Scout model in Damascus. It's all finished, it's all oiled up, but it's got the final etch done on it. It's ready to go. So basically, this knife is getting this set of handles today. Really cool multi-piece set. And I'm going to show a few of the steps and everything of getting those babies on there. So stay tuned and let's do it. So the first step to doing this is, with these multi-piece ones at least, I like to drill both sides at the same time, okay? So what you're doing is you're making sure that everything's lined up properly, okay? Both scales line up perfect. That's the first step. Yeah, you can see that, okay? The other thing is make sure that wherever your cross section is, like wherever your inlay is where you want it. As far as, like, I like to space it between my two pinholes, okay? So make sure that's even, this to this, this to this, okay? And also that these are super even, all right? Or else you're pretty much gonna ruin it right now. So, and then I just use a big vice grip to hold it in place. You don't have to put a ton of pressure on it, but I don't know, that's what I do, so it works. So we're gonna drill, like I said, this takes 2 1/4-inch pins and a 5/16 lanyard tube. So that's what I'm gonna do right now, get that drilled. So basically, if it's all clamped together like this, you drill it, everything is gonna be good to go. You don't have to worry about anything. And sorry about that, somebody just called me. So another good tip is to make sure your drill press is very level, because when I drill these, I think you guys can see from there, like, I pull the table way to one side to be able to hit this pin, okay? And then I go like this and flip it to this side and use the edge of the table like that to be able to hit this pin. Now, if your table isn't square, your pinholes are gonna be a little crooked and wonky and you're gonna have issues. So make sure that, you know, you can even do it on kind of a chintzy drill press or whatever you have. This is not like a big fancy one, but it's a little bit more stout than like the cheaper model one, like this other one I'm running too. But so yeah, good tip. Okay, I'm gonna drill these pinholes and I'll show you the next step. Okay, that one's drilled, that one's drilled. Got to put a 5/16 bit in, get that lanyard tube drilled. So once all your pinholes are drilled, your lanyard tube's drilled, the next step is get your pins ready. Now I'm using these mosaic pins for this build. And they come in like pieces like this, kind of. And what I do is kind of roughly measure how much pin you need for the knife and the handle and everything. And I cut them on the bandsaw. However you guys do it, you can do it with a hacksaw or whatever. So cut your pins to length. And then what you do is, like, I've already got these ones cut. But the problem is these are 1/4-inch pins. And my drill bit that I used to drill those were 1/4-inch as well, but they never fit just right. Okay, these are going to be too big; they're not going to fit. So what I do, and there's a couple different ways to approach it. You can either get that one step up of drill bit and run that one, like the I don't remember the correct size, but just the tiny bit of a step up from a 1/4 inch to make these fit, or you can turn these down just a tiny bit, okay? And there's multiple ways to do that. You can put it in your drill press and lock it in your drill press with some sandpaper and slowly turn it down just a little bit to where you have a really good tight fit. And I'll show you guys the fit that I get most of the time. Or what I do is put like a 120 grit belt on the grinder and just kind of push it up against the grinder and slowly turn it one turn and do real slow speeds both sides, and it gets it to where it's a little less time consuming than chucking it in the drill press, and it still gives you the results you need. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to turn these down a little bit and get that right fit, and then I'll check back in and show you guys kind of where it's at and the fit I like to get with the pins, because people ask that a lot, like, are you supposed to hammer the pins in? Should they slide in and out? And there's a real tight spot where you like to get it, and I'll show you guys that in a second here. Okay, so just like that, you can see I'm just turning it down a little bit. And it also is good to get a little bit of, I don't know what you'd call it, but to scuff these things up as well, just so that adhesive has something good to bond to. So it's kind of killing two birds with one stone. So all right, I'm gonna get all 3 of these pins fit up, and then I'll check back in and show you guys. Okay, so we got our pins in. Let's see if I think this is kind of what you want. You want to be able to push it through, but not have it just free sliding, but not have to like whack it in with a hammer, I guess would be a good way to describe it. And if it's a little bit loose, it's not the end of the world, unless you're working with certain materials. Like if you're doing some G10, that you got to really pay attention and get it tight, because it gets a little white around the outside of the pin if it's a little loose. So you want those to be pretty tight, and you can tap those in a little bit because it's not going to crack. It's a really good material. Now if you're working with woods like this, I always would say a little bit looser is better than a little bit tighter, because if you have to tap it in with a hammer when you're going to set your pins, it's very easy to split the wood around one of these pins, especially your rear lanyard tube, where there's not a bunch of material around it. So I don't know, that's one little tip. I've done it, been there, done that, broke handles, that whole thing. So the next step, I'm gonna cut out, you can see I've traced out where my handle is. I'm gonna kind of cut it to size roughly, and then get the front part of the knife, or the front part of the handle, shaped how I want it, and I'll show that step right now. Okay, so what I did, and this is gonna vary on whatever knife you're doing, that's why I didn't really show it, is I obviously cut the scales down to size to where they're really close to the size of the knife, okay? And then decide on how you want your front to look, the front of the handles right here. And what I do is I match the bevel angle with the front of the scale there, you can see. And then I just do a little up sweep right there to kind of bring it back behind that jimping. And that's just what I do with all these scouts and outdoorsmen, and even the trekkers too. So just, that's how I do it. You guys are gonna have to figure out how you want that front to look, but you have to kind of get that done before you mount these on the knife, because you'll never be able to adjust that after. So now the next step is finishing this part of the knife, or this part of the handle. to where it's ready to go and you never have to touch it again. So what I do is I clamp it in my vise, and you can finish it on your grinder however how you want to. Like I just shape these with a 36 grit, so I'm gonna start at like a 80 grit and work up to 1200 on the fronts of these just by hand sanding it. I'm not really gonna show that, it's kind of obvious what you have to do. But after that, I'll show you the process of kind of prepping this knife, and then you're almost ready to mount these handles. So we'll jump to that here in a second, and I'll show you guys what these look like after they're finishing. All right, well, we are ready to mount these handles up. So I took that front to 1200, and then this is stabilized wood, so I buffed it. And so that's ready to go. Now, I'm actually working on 2 of these at the same time, and I decided, since it's all kind of up to you and how you do things, you can see this angle goes this way, okay? And with this knife, it's kind of like the plunge goes the opposite direction of that. And so I did the other knife I'm working on is the same Damascus Scout, with very similar handles to these, and I went and I made this angle go this way with the other one. So I don't know, I just did it because I wanted to see really what looked cooler when it was done, because I do a lot of these multi-piece handles, and I pretty much always run this angle of inlay with the bevel. So it's like everything's going that way on the knife, and I thought maybe trying it this way once might give you a little bit of maybe contrast, or maybe, I don't even know what you'd call it, but just kind of an experiment to see what ends up looking better. So now what I'm gonna do is put the knife on like this, okay? And what I do is I'm gonna take a little marker and go right, my marker, PS with these markers, if you get oil on them, they don't work. And what I'm gonna do is draw a little line, boop, like that, okay? And that gives me an idea on where I need to scuff and sand the knife before installing those handles. So as you can see, I put quite a few holes in the handle of the knife. A little bit of it's for weight reduction, but the main thing is to give that epoxy room to move in and out and really form a good bond. But the next step is scuffing this all up to give the epoxy, something to grab onto. And what I use that I found is these, this one's kind of worn out. And I don't even know where I got, but these are 40 grit little discs. And, I would say the more coarse you can get, the better. But I just found these somewhere. It was the most coarse ones, and they seem to work really well. And so what I'm going to do is go like this, kind of scuff this all up to where I just drew that line so you don't mess up the finish of your knife. Get that scuffed up really good. And then I'll kind of show you guys what that looks like. And that's key, make sure you take a little bit of time and really scuff it good and clean it up really good. No rust, no anything weird on the handle. And make sure you give that epoxy something to really grab onto. I always just set it down on this granite surface plate, kind of like this. You guys maybe can see that. The camera's kind of far away. And, get it as close to that line as you're comfortable with. You obviously don't want to go over that line, but you need to get a good scuffed up, clean metal surface. And try to get them in different directions too. Don't just go one way, give them some swirls and stuff like that. And then do the same for this side of the handles as well. The side that you're gluing to that knife, make sure you scuff that really good. Keep it flat, make sure it stays flat. And use that same, like a 36 or a 40 grit is what I like. You just want to really make sure you have a nice, clean, flat surface to work with. Okay, so do that to both sides. All right, so your knife should be looking like that, kind of. Scuffed really good. Okay, same with your handles. And the next step is get them ready to epoxy. Now, I normally lay down a little bit of tape like this to kind of mix the epoxy up on. As you can see from my workbench, it gets all over every time, but that's okay. And what I use is just some lacquer thinner or mineral spirits or acetone, whatever you have. Make sure you're cleaning everything really good, getting all the oils and everything off of it really good before you're ready to glue these things up. The cleaner, the better. And this is the key to the whole thing. And you want to make sure you just do it right. Take your time. Clean everything once or twice and just make sure that you've got them perfect before you glue them up. So this is what I do. I clean everything 2 different times. I let them dry, clean them, and that way you just know that they're perfect and ready to be glued up. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so here's what you should have. 2 handles ready to go. Okay, these are clean, don't touch them. Pins, knife, ready, clean, scuffed. This is the epoxy I use. This is that West Systems G-Flex. It's kind of expensive. Like, I think for these jugs of it, it's like about $70 or something like that. But these last me quite a while, and I have had no problems with it. So I've tried like a couple different kinds, like maybe stuff you get at the hardware store or whatever, and it's relatively good, but I have had a few little issues with it. So I don't know, spend a little extra money, get the good stuff. I don't really think it gets any better than this. So why not just use the best if you're going through all this trouble, right? So I'm gonna mix up some epoxy. Like I said, I put, maybe a quarter size amount here, quarter size amount here, mix it up. And I'll show you guys that right now. Okay. So I just squeeze it out about like that. I don't really measure it or anything. I just make sure they're about the same size. And then, let me find a little mixer here. I actually just use, I save these little cutoffs from all my Kydex to mix up all that epoxy, because why waste, popsicle sticks or have to buy those. This stuff's good to go. Just clean all the dust off it and everything like that before you. Oh yeah, don't wear nice shirts if you're making knives, okay? So that's ready to go. Gonna mix it up. You can wear gloves for this too if you are worried about getting it on your fingers, but it comes off, it's not the end of the world. So mix it up really good, like that. I'll probably just show this whole process. This video might be getting kind of long, but maybe you'll learn something. So get it mixed good, like that. Okay, get one of these, and I just kind of goop it on there. and do a nice coat over the whole thing. Not crazy thick, but just enough to really cover everything. I try to avoid getting it inside my lanyard tube hole as much as I can. I'll show you why. So you got it covered pretty good. Okay. Then take your pins, dunk them in, kind of with a little spinning motion. Should be able to get them in there. See how that was a good show how tight the pinholes are, okay? Like if you have to tap them a little bit, it's okay, but you should be able to just kind of press them in and bottom them out right there, okay? I don't put my lanyard tube in yet. So now, see if this lines up good. Everything's going good. Looks like the lanyard tube's off just a hair. Okay, so get your other side ready. Do the same thing, coat it good. And this is like, I don't remember what the cure time is on this epoxy, but it's not a fast setting. Like these always sit for 24 hours before I do anything with them. So you don't have to rush or anything like this or anything, you know, just take your time. And what I do is take that little excess, kind of wrap it around the pin, okay? And you might not have to do that, but that's just something I always do for whatever reason. If you have any excess, I like to kind of dab it in those holes that you made. And then, like I said, I still haven't used my lanyard tube, okay? Line these up. This is where it gets a little tricky sometimes. Okay. And we're good. So take your lanyard tube, coat it, get a little bit of epoxy on it. You don't have to go crazy. Just get it to where it has some on it. Because like I said, I was trying to avoid getting any in this hole, because what happens is if you get this filled up with epoxy and then you put your lanyard tube in it, it gets inside the lanyard tube and then it's a little tricky to get out. You can do it, but just, you know, pay attention and you won't have to worry about it. This, I sometimes have to tap this in a little bit. With get a good hammer to tap it in with. Okay. So you're glued up. Okay. And hang on one second. I got epoxy all over. Let me zoom this out a little bit. Sorry. Trying to do this all in one swoop. So the other thing that people talk about is how much pressure to put on the handle after it's glued up, okay? Because some people say if you put too much pressure, you're gonna push out a lot of that glue and cause problems. So I've tried it both ways, okay? And what I always do is I use these clamps, okay? And basically, I normally use like 3 of them on a knife this size. And you just want them spaced out evenly, okay? And you can see I'm not like reefing down on it with pressure, but I'm putting enough to where you're getting a little squeeze out, okay? I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain how much pressure I'm putting on it, but it's definitely more pressure than what you get if you're going to use these clamps. It's probably a little more pressure, you know, and these work okay too, but I just find that, you know, using these types of clamps and really getting a good squeeze on it seems to give me better results, okay? So there you have it, nice glued up. We got 3 clamps on it. I hope I explained this good. Make sure you guys drop a comment and tell me what I messed up or what I missed or something like that. But like I said, I tried to do this last one in just one take. So then I take a few of these Q-tips Okay? And take some of your acetone or whatever you have, and you want to clean up the excess that came out from right here. Let's see. Like the front that you already buffed and cleaned up on the front of that knife, you want to clean out all your squeeze out along here, okay? And normally it takes a couple Q-tips. Now, now the key with this is you don't want to use so much lacquer or whatever you're using to where it runs down that seam, that front seam of the knife, because then you're going to affect that epoxy. You just want enough on there to where you're able to clean off. That's why I always just kind of wipe it a little bit on my hand when I'm doing this. That, and you just don't want any squeeze out left over, because it will be problematic. So that's it. I think I always take a little bit of oil, like 3-in-1 oil, and put it on the spot that you just cleaned, especially if you have like a really nice satin finished carbon steel knife that you're working on, because that will rust as it sits overnight to cure. Been there, done that. So take a little bit of oil on your Q-tip and hit it on that spot, okay? So then you're not worried about it. You won't have any problems. And you're good to go. So I hope that I covered everything with this. If you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments, send me a message, whatever you do, I'll try to answer them. I had a lot of people ask for this type of video explaining this kind of in detail. So I decided to get it done today. So I've got a few more to do. Like I said, I've got 2 of these to do today. Bunch of other stuff, but I wanted to show this real quick. And all right, time to get back to work. All right, guys, thanks for watching.